your story has a cost. And then the question is it a cost that it's bearable? Is it a cost that I want to pay? Or is it something, do I want to change my story? Because it could be costing us our passion. It could be costing us just that drive for things. It could be costing us financially because we keep holding back.
This is Henry Washington, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below. Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Bob Wheeler. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time and for joining us today.
Mike, absolutely happy to be here. Love to talk about money.
Awesome. I love to talk about money too, right? Hey, let's kick things off the same way that I kick off every episode. And we'd like to know more about you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, tell us your story. Who is Bob Wheeler?
I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'll tell you what I know so far. I am a CPA. I have a tax practice of about 1,000 clients, mostly work with entrepreneurs. I also am the CFO of the world famous Comedy Store. And then I wrote a book, The Money Nerve, and do workshops around money and emotions, because I found when I sat with my tax clients, if I didn't understand their unconscious money stories, we weren't going to get very far with the practical stuff. And so I got into that. My latest project, I just finished the first book in a children's series, The Financially Fit Kids, called Darius Wants a Dog. And I'm co-writing those with several people. And the first one releases in November, so I'm excited about that. And I got into accounting. I wanted to be a lawyer and met a bunch of lawyers in law school and thought, I don't really like these people. I think I'll do something else. Accounting was just something to do for my grade point average at the time, like everybody else, I'm sure. And ultimately, I went into it thinking I would learn about other businesses so I could start my own other business, not realizing my own other business would be a tax practice. And then ultimately my other projects, but that's where we are now. And I jokingly said, I like to talk about money. It's because my passion or my goal has been to neutralize conversations around money and the money conversation, because so many people secretly think they got it wrong, think they're alone, or have a lot of shame around their previous financial choices. So here we are.
Yeah, Bob, here we are. It's funny that you ended it with that, because I've had other conversations with people talking about how just growing up here in the States, right? Like it was always a very taboo topic to bring up money. That's not something you talked about at the dinner table. It wasn't something that you really heard families discussing or just having those conversations. And then those conversations aren't happening in school either, right? We're not teaching financial literacy to kids. So the fact that you're writing a children's book series, that made my ears perk up a little bit. And I think that's fantastic, because we need more content and stuff that's easier for children to absorb and get this basic understanding of financial literacy. My kids just finished reading this book called Grandpa's Fortune Fables. Fantastic book. I've had the author on the podcast before. What I really liked about it, it felt like The Richest Man in Babylon, but the children's version, right?
Yeah, great.
So I thought that was really awesome. Like, it was stories and fables and stuff, and you get the general understanding about compound interest and investing and all that. So I thought that was wonderful. So anytime that I know that there's like a children's book coming out that's based around financial literacy, I'm all about that. So I'm really excited to talk about what you're doing with that, talk about your book, talk about everything else that you're doing with the Money Nerve, and then also about what you're doing with being the CFO for a comedy club, which is very young to me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So that's a lot to unpack, though, even though it was just a short little intro. You were going to school because you wanted to be a lawyer. And while you were there, you figured out, I don't want to be a lawyer. So you were taking that accounting class just to increase your GPA. And did you find something like while you were taking that class that maybe hey, I'm actually more passionate about this stuff, about money and figuring out how to make more? So what was it that kind of clicked in your head besides, I don't want to be a lawyer, to make you decide to go down the route to be a CPA?
This will be a little surprising, and it's probably true for a lot more accountants than they'll admit. But I think at a certain point, I liked the safety. It's a closed system. 2 + 2 is 4. It's 4. It's not 3. And so the rules are initially the rules are very black and white. It doesn't mean you can't push the envelope, move the line and all that stuff once you know the rules. But I think for me, knowing there was safety in, okay, I can't get this wrong because I'm a perfectionist. And if it's wrong, there's a way to figure out how to make it right. Law, if you argue it well, you could be totally lying out your butt and still win the argument. The other thing for me initially, I'd rather talk to numbers than people. Now I'm a lot more comfortable and I go around and people say, please shut up. But for a long time, I was much happier in the back, just working the numbers, and I'd give people strategy. And then I was forced to have to talk about it because they'd go, wait, tell me more, tell my friend. And so for me, it was really initially, I like to get things right. Accounting was a great way to know I had it right. And I didn't have to do a lot of interacting. I could mostly just work the numbers. And for me, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. So you found something that you were passionate about, right? It wasn't just, hey, I want to make some more money. It was, I really like how this works and I understand it and I want to explore this more. And I also like how you mentioned too, it is pretty black and white, especially in the beginning, right? 2 + 2 = 4. Right. But then as you get further into it and you get a better understanding, you see where you can and can't move the line and try to figure things out. That's one of the things I like about just investing in general, especially real estate investing, with some of the tax advantages that we get. And it's really funny to see you could have 2 people making the same amount of money. The person that's investing is going to save a lot more in their taxes than the person that's just saving their money. So I think that's huge. Okay. If you could, I know that there's a lot that comes into making decisions, financial decisions, right? And I know one of the things that people really follow, one of the things that really affects somebody's decision financially is their own personal emotions. So how would you say that emotions kind of impact these financial decision making?
It impacts a lot. So if I'm afraid of making mistakes, I may not invest. Oh, that's too scary. Or for myself, sometimes I take 6 months to make a decision. The decision needs to be made in the first week. If you don't jump on it, if you're so busy going, I'm not sure. What if I get it? You miss the opportunity, right? So that happened to me a bit sometimes because I'd be like, oh, for a while I was okay with that because I thought I'm more comfortable missing the opportunity than the discomfort of pushing through and realizing the opportunity. But even if it's in a job, I've had several move jobs because they just got promoted to management. They were going to have to talk to the staff on a regular basis and they weren't comfortable with public speaking. So they're like, I'm out. And so if we're not comfortable speaking out or saying what's true, or, hey, I don't know the answer here, we hide and then try and hope nobody figures out that we don't know what's going on. And so then we make a lot of decisions by default because we hold back out of fear.
Okay. I think that is fantastic. Just the way that you responded to that, because I find a lot of people struggle with this. I've struggled this with myself several times. It's that analysis paralysis, right? Where you just overanalyze because you have this fear of, if I do this and I mess up, how far is this going to set me back? Or if I do this and I mess up, is this going to be the end? And I feel like one of the things that I've found for me, it's, every failure is another step up the staircase towards success. Yeah. And I have found myself now getting to the point of, okay, let me talk myself out of doing something. I need to try to talk myself out of it because like when I find something that I want to do, it's okay, I'm doing it. Let's go. I have this new thing, I have this new thing that I'm working on, and working on a bunch of different things, but I have this new thing that kind of came up. It was one of those crazy ideas that I need to do this now and not wait, because if I wait, I'm going to miss this opportunity. So I shelved a couple other things that I was working on to focus on this new business that I'm going to start working on. And I used to not think this way. That's why I think these kind of conversations are important. I had to change my own mindset when it came to how I felt about my money, how I treated my money, how I felt about my investing decisions and all of that. So I know there is a lot of emotion, and no matter how much you try to take the emotion out, Bob, it's always going to be there. Right. So what are your thoughts on that? So for somebody that's struggling with that and they just can't get over the fact that they cannot uncheck their emotion or untie their emotion from those decisions, what would you recommend to somebody like that?
I think the first thing is to just name the fact that everything is tied to emotions. You can't separate out the fact that we're human beings and we're emotional beings. And the stock market goes up and down. Emotions, housing market, up and down, emotions, supply and demand, scarcity, abundance. So the way I like to say it to people is, because I'm an accountant, I'm looking at everything from a cost benefit analysis, right? Your story has a cost. And then the question is it a cost that it's bearable? Is it a cost that I want to pay? Or is it something, do I want to change my story? Because it could be costing us our passion, It could be costing us just that drive for things. It could be costing us financially because we keep holding back or we keep waiting and waiting. Oh, I'm ready. Yeah, the ship has sailed. And I ask myself, what's it costing me? What are the benefits? I get to stay small. I don't have to risk failure. The cost is I'm not getting ahead financially. And then am I willing to step out of that comfort zone? Because most of us need a pain point to move us a little bit out. Because if you're comfortable, why should I move? I'm comfortable. But you have to, for me, it's important to get clear about what do I want? How do I want to show up? What's the impact I want to have? What's the legacy I want to leave? And do I want to do the work? And if you don't, that's totally fine too. But then just know you're comfortable in your story and be good with that.
Yeah, Bob, that is phenomenal. So I'm sitting here jotting down notes while you're talking, and some of the things I wrote down, and I think this is like the key thing is you said, what will it cost? What are the benefits? And then am I willing to step out of that comfort zone to make it happen? And I feel like those are like those three questions you should ask yourself with any financial decision that you're going to make. There's always cost with everything, right? Whether it's monetary value, whether it's your time, right? There's always a cost associated with anything that you're going to do in life. And one of the things is time is something you're never going to get back. Money, you can make more money. You could figure that out, right? But time, you're never going to get that back. So that is also a very big decision factor for me, is how much time do I need to dedicate to a specific thing? And will it return enough to me to make it worth me spending my time on that, or should I focus on something else? And I think that's like that turning point, that once you reach that turning point, you start to really start scaling up what you're doing towards success. And so I really enjoy conversations like this, because a lot of people will talk about the great investment stories about how, oh yeah, I found this home run deal, or I invested in this stock and it shot straight to the moon, YOLO. You don't hear too many people talking about the actual emotions behind that, the things that affect your decision-making ability to get into deals like that. Sure, there's some that are base hits, and then there's some that are education tools because you made some big mistakes, right? But that stuff you can get back. What you really need to focus on is your mindset and mentality, right? So speaking of that, I feel like it has to deal with your relationship with money, right? So how do you have a healthy relationship with your money?
Well, I think the first piece of that is getting to know your story, looking back at your history. What did mom, dad say about money, not say about money? Did I grow up in a religious background? Did my culture value money, or did it shame me? All those things. And it's not right or wrong. It's just, how was I socialized to talk about money, not talk about money, keep a low profile, jump out and show everybody, look at me, like whatever those things were. We need to know those things. Were you shamed as a kid when you asked for something? Even going into school, first grade, are you on the lunch program, the free meals? Are you wearing hand-me-downs? Are you wearing the newest, fanciest clothing, right? Because all the other kids are going to let you, that's not new, or that's not cool. And we know really early on where we start to fit in the socioeconomic status with our own first and second grade peers.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And the funny thing is, too, you see a lot of those kids that are, oh, that's not the latest fashion, this and that. But meanwhile, your family might be disciplined with their money and they're getting you stuff that you need. Where some of those other kids that are sitting there making fun of you for not having the right pair of shoes or the right pair of jeans, their parents charged all that on credit cards and they're going to be paying it off for the rest of their life. Where your parents saved up a little bit and they paid for your college education or something. So there's always bits and pieces of that, or that's just what they needed to do to survive, right? So yeah, it is at a very young age that we start to notice this stuff. And then I guess maybe we don't really think about the mental impact that it has on a younger child, right? When you're 6, 7 years old going into first, and there's other kids maybe picking on you because you don't have the newest Jordans or whatever, and you know, it's one of those things that kind of sticks with you as you grow up into adulthood and can impact you greatly. I know for me, growing up the way that I did, my family was all about when they had money, they spent money, and my dad would make a lot of money and he'd spend a lot of money. And then there'd be times where we don't have that much, so we need to figure this out and might lose the house or whatever. It's just little things like that. So I grew up it was almost like an emotional roller coaster, like the stock market, right? It was like, we're here. And it's one of the things that impacted me to say, I don't ever want to do that to my children. And it helped me start to figure out how to build this healthier relationship with money. Although it took me till much later in life to figure that out and realize that was one of the things that triggered or impacted me from my childhood. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I'm really happy that you bring that up. And I know you've probably worked with several people that have had similar situations. So what are some, I guess, maybe some stories you could share with us, or just some insight that you've seen from people that you've worked with on how they went about changing that specific relationship? So one, they had to identify it, right? That's what you were talking about before. So
Right.
after you identify it, how do you change that relationship?
So the next piece to that is starting to get really conscious of what you. So a lot of times I have clients tell me, "Oh, I'm so broke. This is the worst year ever. I'm so broke." I had a client the other week. We're doing the taxes. I'm like, "You're going to owe this much money." That's incredible. Where did my money go? That's a different conversation, right? But they're saying, "Oh, this is the worst year ever." And I said, "You made this amount of money. You got an SBA loan. You got." And then finally, "Oh, well, we do have about $500,000 in the bank. Oh, and we did buy that." Oh, you know what? This was really probably the best year we had. But her go-to story was worst year ever. We're never going to get ahead. And yet the facts didn't support that. So it's so important to get aware of, oh, I'm so broke. I need this new phone. I need the newest car because my old one just doesn't work, even though it runs and it drives me where I need to go. So to figure out that piece so that we can then actually get conscious about choice. So we're no longer a victim to our story. I'm choosing to do this versus, oh, this keeps happening to me, to take a proactive approach to our financial situation.
Yeah, that's huge. Like, I feel like a lot of people have that victim mentality where they say, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me and not everyone else? But what they don't realize, it is happening to everyone else, and they're just treating the situation differently. So know your story was the first part. Be conscious about what you say was the second piece of that. And I feel like that is so huge because you really need to think about the words that come out of your mouth, because words matter,
They
right?
do.
And you might say, like your client, right, said that this was the worst year ever. So in her head, when she says it, she's reaffirming that to herself, that this
Right.
was our worst year ever. And then you said, you're paying more in taxes because look at how much more money you made this year. You're not looking at the positive side of it. You're only looking that you have to pay Uncle Sam more money than you had to pay last year. Look, if you're paying more in taxes, that's generally a good thing. It's because you made money. And a lot of people don't look at it that way. They just think, oh, I'm losing thousands of dollars because of A, B, C, and D. Let's talk about what A, B, C, and D is. A, you made a lot more money. B, you made a lot more money. And you can see where that goes, right? Okay, fantastic. So those two things are super important. Now, once you've figured out your own story, you figured out how to use your words appropriately to match your actual situation, what's next after that?
Then to start tracking your emotions. Somebody else gets a bonus. Oh, I can't believe they got a bonus. Oh, I'm happy for them. Wow, why did I get that deal? So, or wow, that makes me angry. Or going into the store, man, I hope my credit card doesn't decline. Am I in constant fear? Am I, oh, I don't deserve this. Like, why did I get all this money? So what are the emotional stories that are going through your head? Just be aware of the response. When you win a lottery ticket you didn't expect to win, and you, hey, I won $100, you're like, oh, $100. That's like, you just won $1 million. We feel it. We get so excited. But then most of us have had the unfortunate experience of having a credit card declined at dinner or overdrafting a bank account, and you just want to puke. It's just, ugh. And so starting to just be aware of those places where there's not enough. So I come from a scarcity mindset. And so I'm always like, is there food in the pantry? We've got to have a year's worth. Now I can tell myself, Bob, there's your crazy story again. But I still naturally go there. And then I have to talk myself off the ledge because I'm like, no, that facts don't support your story, Bob. Let's get over that. So I have to catch myself because I can spiral.
Yeah, Bob, thank you for the transparency there, because I think that's important for people to note that even after figuring all this out, you still have to have that conversation with yourself too. And I find myself in that situation all the time as well. Even when I know like my card's not going to decline or whatever, I always feel like, or if I'm using Apple Pay when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, and it's taking too long to process, I'm like, oh, great, what's going on here? It's going to say decline and I have to use something else. And that, oh, that's embarrassing, right? Even though I know the money's there, right? This is embarrassing. But no, and then it eventually goes through and I'm like, whew, but why did I let my blood pressure go up? Why did I let my emotions go unchecked in that moment? It's still like one of those things that you constantly have to battle and struggle with. And yeah, I'd like to hope that one day I'll just be like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine. I don't have to worry about that stuff because I know it's okay. But even though I know it's okay, I still go with that. And I feel like so many people do. Like even you, like you just said it too.
Look, now maybe this isn't everybody's experience because maybe not everybody's been in a position, but I can tell you I've bought and refinanced a few properties. Even still, I can look at my credit score. I know I have the down payment. I know everything's lined up, and I still get emotional when they start asking, wait, we need to see that other tax return. Wait, justify. And I feel like I'm getting scrutinized. I'm like, oh my God. Now it goes through, but that period of time we get super emotional. Or splitting a bill when you're with a bunch of friends at a restaurant. Watch the emotions fly as everybody's, I want to pay the bill. No, I can't pay the bill. Let me go hide. No, I didn't have fries. You have to pay for your, like it gets so triggering. But just start to be aware of in those situations. Wow, isn't that interesting? Don't judge it. Just go, wow. Man, I get really upset, or I get really worried, or I really freak out. Good information to know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. As a matter of fact, I was at a dinner, 2 nights ago with some other investor buddies of mine. And we were just having a meet up just to catch up and talk about what we're working on, what's going on. And we went out for pizzas and beer, right, over at one of the places out here in Chinatown. And we were like, at the end, when the bill was going to come, the last time my buddy Mike he went in there and said, I'm paying for everything. And this time I said, nope, I pulled out my card. The other guy pulled out his card. And I said, okay, fine. Let's split it 3 ways. They were like, we had more drinks than you. And this, I said, let's just split it 3 ways evenly. I was like, I don't care if you had more drinks than me. That's fine. Let's split it 3 ways and just be done with it. Because everybody was like fighting to, no, I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay.
Yeah.
This is my write-off. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But it was pretty funny. And it's like, you don't realize that you have these small little emotions tied to it. I was like, I'm not going to sit here and let these guys pay for me again. No way, damn it. I'm paying for this. So it's funny because, again, not something subconsciously you don't realize your emotions are tied to that. Right away, when the bill came and everybody was just reaching for their wallet, right? No, we're paying. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Now, I know that there's some stuff with your story that kind of helped you shift your mindset. And from what I understand on your background, it was something that happened in Africa, right?
Yeah.
That actually completely changed your belief system around money. So what was it that happened?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are socialized this way. I was brought up to believe that I am my accomplishments. My value is in what I can produce. Be an A student, get into a good college, get a credential, own a house, all those things. And if I keep doing those things, Bob will be good. And so got to make more money, got to have this fancy car, things. I had to have a lot of material things. So everybody knew I had value. But the problem with that is once you accomplish something, you got to move on to the next thing because that's only good for 5 minutes because that was yesterday. And so I was in this, I got to accomplish. I got to Africa and I was in Tanzania and the average income at the time was $100 a year per person. Now it's probably 150, right? These people are dirt poor. And I'm looking around at all these people. And first of all, I'd be throwing away a jar or a bottle and they would say, can I have that? That's precious to me. I'm like, it's a bottle, it's trash. So they could see value in things that I was just tossing left and right. What I discovered was these people were incredibly happy. They didn't even have matching shoes if they had shoes. And they would have given me the shirt off their back, even if it was their only shirt. They would have shared their last drink. And I couldn't get over how happy they were. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Don't you understand? You don't have material things. You can't be happy. And it just really messed with me because I just couldn't process reliant they were on each other, how community was important, how relationships were important, how money didn't even matter. If you had it, you shared it. If you didn't have it, you just connected with everybody around you. And so I went back home and I couldn't wait to get back to my Mercedes and my place and all this stuff. And I just couldn't get it out of my mind. What's wrong with these people? What's wrong with these people? Until I came to the realization was, what's wrong with your thinking, Bob? Like, when can you start to have a little bit of gratitude of all the amazing things you have? Learn to be grateful for the fact that I have water, let alone that it's hot. For the fact that I can afford to pay for $7 gas in California and not bat an eye. And so once I was able to shift to this place of gratitude and really realize, like, every day is a gift, right? It's not promised. I hope I live a long time, but who knows? And so really shifting away from, I got to get this, I got to get more of that, and then I'm going to beat this person, and really getting into how can I be of service? How can I show up and make the place a little bit better than I left it? And really just shifting that changed. It just made everything exponentially much more amazing, because when I started to have gratitude, when I started to see the blessings and just waking up and breathing, because some people didn't do that today, it changed everything.
Wow, that is very moving, for one, just to see that you didn't require money for happiness, right? Just
Yeah.
to see how just small things can make somebody happy, like your used jar, right? Or bottles. And that is something that I feel like if I was to experience, like to be in a situation like that, I have seen that overseas in different places that I've been, especially when I was boots on ground in Iraq. And I saw a lot of that. There was children that were just happy to have a cup of water. So little things like that, it's not so much the monetary value that we put on things. It's the intrinsic value. It's the happiness, the joy that you get out of certain things in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be material things. And the fact that you said that they were so giving as well, right? That they would have given you the shirt off their back, even if it was the only shirt they had, is very telling for anybody. So what a great experience, man, to really help you shift your beliefs about. And it's funny because I had this conversation with my wife the other day, and I said, if we ever got to the point where we got really rich or whatever, we're doing like super well, I said, I can't see myself like keeping all this money and trying to figure out like what we're going to do with everything. I said, honestly, I feel like I would keep enough for us to be happy and give the rest away. It's like, you don't need all that stuff. You don't need, it's material things. As long as I have my wife and my kids and we have a place to live, a roof over our heads, I'm happy. When you can nail it down to like basic things that you need in life versus those wants, it can change everything. And I feel like happiness is the biggest currency in my life. Happiness and freedom are the two things that I enjoy the most. So my entire goal with building passive income was to give myself that time freedom to enjoy more things around me, enjoy my family, friends, and have that happiness, right? Because that to me is the main currency that I think people should be focused on, for sure.
Absolutely. I heard, and I won't get this exactly right, but basically our real value is what we would be without any of our money and our assets, right? That's the value I think that for me, I'm looking for. Am I showing up with compassion? Am I showing up with a loving heart? Am I showing up to be of service versus, oh my God, I don't have any of this money. What am I now? Because at the end of the day, we all come in with nothing. We all leave with nothing.
That's right. You're not taking your possessions with you when you leave this world. And one of the unfortunate truths about life is we're all going to die, right?
Yeah.
It's going to happen one day. Why not enjoy the time that you have here with the things that matter most, right? Don't let money be the thing that rules your life. It's a tool. So use it as such. Use it as a tool to make your life comfortable and happy and enriched, not have your life revolve around it. So I think that's huge, man. Okay. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit because during your intro, you had mentioned that you're the CFO of the world famous Comedy Store. I want to know, like, how do you go from being a CPA, being an accountant, to saying, okay, I'm going to get involved with this world famous Comedy Store and become their CFO? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, not planned. What happened was, as most CPAs, and maybe you as well, my secret passion was stand-up comedy. So I was doing stand-up comedy, and I wouldn't let people know. I wouldn't tell people I was a CPA. I'm like, no, I'm just a comic. Like, I don't work. And what happened was the Comedy Store back in the day got into some financial problems, didn't pay their payroll taxes. They were getting nasty letters. And Mitzi Shore, the owner of the club, called me up and she's like, I heard you're a CPA. You got to help us out. The club's in trouble. And I was like, no, I'm a comic, Mitzi. I'm a comic. She's, no, you got to help us out. All my friends were comics. That was my side hustle, making $10 a month. And then the Comedy Store's got 3 rooms. There's a lot of, like, most clubs have 1 room, maybe 2. I just felt a connection to the club and I wanted to make sure that my friends and I had a place to perform. And so I was still performing. I was not actually, for a long time, nobody knew I was the CFO because I was like, Mitzi, I don't want anybody to know because I just want to be a comic. But I got to have an amazing relationship with Mitzi. I've been at the club for probably 30 years now, but I feel, and actually I'm just as excited that I got my name painted on the wall as a comic as I am about being the CFO. But I do feel really fortunate that I was there to help make sure they didn't close the doors at that time. And lots of other people have come in and helped at different times. but it's been a great ride. I love comedy, comics. I love performing. And yeah, I love the store.
Yeah, that's awesome, Bob. And it's good that they brought you in as the CFO so you could finally make money at the Comedy Store versus what you were doing as a comic. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Okay, that was just my little trying to be funny right there. But no, that's really good stuff, man. And it's funny because opportunities present themselves at times where we least expect them. So here you were doing this as a side gig, and all of a sudden you get this phone call like, Bob, help us out. And it's funny because you could always just said, no, I want to just focus on the comedy portion. I don't want to get involved in all this other stuff. But you took that opportunity and you actually helped save the place. Because who knows what happens if you would have turned them down and now the place gets shut down and you don't have a place to go perform your side gigs. And now you're one of those sad comics that are walking around just, man, I just wish I can get a gig somewhere.
Exactly. And here's another piece. I don't talk about this a lot. I've talked about it a couple of times.
Sure.
But knowing that I was going to help out the Comedy Store and I knew they didn't have money meant they couldn't pay me what I would be able to get if I like at any other company would have paid me 4 or 5 times what they were paying me. Right. So because of that, and I knew I wanted to help the store, I needed my accounting practice to be really successful so that all of the other money coming in would help for the times that I couldn't bill the store. And so in a way, the store, by serving the store, it forced me to make my accounting practice much more successful as an indirect result, because I knew I wanted to give my time to the club.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's a very good point as well, because given the situation that they were in, they weren't, obviously they weren't gonna be able to pay you what that job is worth. But I'd like to think that now, after all this time, that
it's much better.
You've got them on the right track and you're in a pretty good spot. So
much better.
Yeah, that's good.
Much
man.
better.
That's good. So you knew, but the thing was, you understood what you needed to do to make sure that you were going to have enough income to take care of yourself and your family and everything, and make sure that it's good to go. And then obviously you found Nemo. I see him behind you back there.
Easy swimming.
Yeah, there you go. All right, fantastic. Hey, Bob, I'd like to transition this into something that I call the final round. So I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on this show, and it helps give us an idea of how you are under pressure or in tough situations. But I think we already know that based off of your story. So if you're ready to go, we'll get this party started.
All right.
All right, let's do it. All right. So Bob, first question is, what is the biggest mistake you've ever made in your finances?
I think it was letting a house I bought go into foreclosure. I didn't actually really know what I was doing. And even though I had an accounting background and everything, my own fear of not wanting to ask questions, and I let it go, and huge mistake. It's worth a lot of money now.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like a lot of people have made that mistake, and a lot of times they don't really want to admit to that. So I appreciate the transparency, but sometimes, again, like I said earlier, it's those opportunities that present themselves at times where you least expect them. And you can either jump on it and enjoy the fruits of that, or you can say, we'll wait this one out, and then realize later on, oh, that sucks. That could have been pretty lucrative, right?
Yeah.
So, no, definitely. All right. So Bob, the next question kind of ties into this, but what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started?
I think I wish that I didn't need to be so afraid. I wish that I'd listened to people say, make the decision and go for it. I think for a lot of my life, I thought if I do that, it's going to kill me. And it's in my mind, that was very real, that this was going to kill me. And I do it and I go, oh, I didn't die. But it took me a while to figure out that a lot of stuff wasn't really going to kill me. So I let my fear be debilitating, and I missed opportunities because of that. And so I wished I knew earlier on, push through the fear, do it scared, like just do it trembling.
Earlier, check your emotions, right?
Yeah.
Check your emotions at the door.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, and I think for a lot of people, they go in going, no, I'm scared, so I'm not going to do it. Fine. I'll stand up shaking. Yeah, I'm shaking, but I'm moving forward. That's much more for me empowering than just sitting back going, no, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared, but I'm going to move forward.
Yeah. Don't let the fear stop you. Just keep moving forward and shaking. Yeah. That's fantastic, Bob. I appreciate that. Okay. Next question, again, ties into this whole thing. Do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started today?
Yeah. So I have this little what, why, what that I ask when I do stuff.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Here we go. What do I want? What do I really want? Whether it's a house, whether it's saving money for a college fund, what do I want? Why do I want it? I want people to think I'm cool. I think it'll give me a better lifestyle, whatever. Why do I want it? Why don't I have it? Am I not willing to do the work? Do I have a belief system? Why don't I have it? And then the final what is, what am I willing to do to get it? Am I willing to get uncomfortable? Am I willing to change my mindset? Am I willing to work an extra couple of hours at night? What am I willing to do? And if I can look at that and know why I want something, why I don't have it, what I'm willing to do to get it, it's much more likely that I'm going to make that come to fruition because I've got a clear set of information that tells me where I want to go.
Absolutely love that. And I was sitting here writing as fast as I could as you were talking about that. I think that's fantastic. What do I want? Why do I want it? Why don't I have it? And what am I willing to do to get it? Oh my goodness. I feel like if you could answer those 4 questions, you're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Right? Figuring out what it is that you want, figuring out the way, or figuring out why you don't have it, figuring out the way to actually go and get it. Yeah, I think that's like almost like a blueprint that you need for any type of financial decision that you're going to make with for something that you might want, whether it be an asset that you want to buy or anything, even if you're going to start your own business.
Yeah.
Ah, that's fantastic, Bob. Why did it take till the final round to squeeze that out of you? What's going on over here? So
I'm holding back, man. I'm holding back.
I know. What else are we missing out on here? What other golden nuggets you got for us, man? That's great. Okay, fantastic, Bob. All right, the final question of the final round, and this is different from the rest of those, and I will preface this with, besides your own, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
So I have 2 favorite books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Great book. I think it so well illustrates mindset. And he didn't even want to publish that book, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And the other book is The Power of Focus, Jack Canfield. That is such a great practical book to really help people line up and then align with their goals. And it's a great book. I read it from time to time and I have a few extras because I like to hand them out to people when I think they're going to read it.
Yeah. Okay. So great recommendations. We've definitely heard the Purple Bible mentioned on here a bunch of times, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But yeah, The Power of Focus. I'm going to add that to my list. That sounds like a really good book. So
yeah,
definitely appreciate those recommendations. All right, Bob, that is it for the final round. However, I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
And this is the most important question out of all the questions I've asked you today, because my listeners have been sitting here listening to this conversation, and they've probably been on an emotional roller coaster with us, hearing your story and just learning about these emotions being tied to your financial decisions. I got a little emotional when you were sharing your story about what changed it for you in Africa. I think that's wonderful. It sheds a lot of light onto who you are as a person, just a very genuine individual. And I definitely appreciate that. One of the things I appreciate about you and appreciate about this conversation. So my listeners are like, we want to know more about Bob. We want to know more about what he's doing. We want to know if we can connect with him. So Bob, where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website you can share with us?
Yeah.
Social media, anything like that? Let's have it all.
Absolutely. So the website is themoneynerve.com. Nerve, N-E-R-V-E. I'm a nerd, but it's themoneynerve.com. They could also go to testmynerve.com if they want to check out their own sort of money story and start to get in touch with some of their emotions. There's some free quiz and some other things that sort of help people connect with that. My social media at Money You Should Ask, which is the name of my podcast, at Money You Should Ask, or at Bob Wheeler with 2 R's because somebody else stole it. Bob Wheeler with 2 R's. And people can reach out to me. I love connecting with people. I love hearing people's stories. We've all got them. And the more we can vocalize them, the more we can learn from them, the more we can change our story if they're not serving us.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Bob. Hey, I'm going to make it easy for all the listeners. I'm going to have his links in the show notes so you guys can copy and paste or click away. Just don't do it while you're driving. Bob, this was fantastic, man. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story, sharing what you do. It was really a great interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time talking with you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And I hope people out there got some value. It's so important we just
100%.
learn to have these conversations around money.
100%. I truly believe they got value. And hey, to my listeners, thank you so much for joining me and our special guest, Bob Wheeler, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Bob. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.